What's up guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Siren, and today I'll be sharing 5 tips with you to create canals running through your own city. I've made some mistakes along the way and learned a few things while making this city and figured that it would be, nice and helpful to share with the rest of the community. So just a quick introduction of the city that I have over here. So I have the inner part of the city, which consists mainly just services and the city hall in the city center, and whereas the rest of the outer ring, I call it's surrounded by basically just residential, right? I have a bigger suburbs over here, some train station, a tiny harbor, and a farming and mining town, and forestry area at the back. So along the way, some of the mistakes I've done is basically, I did not learn how to create a retaining wall before that, and I had issues creating retaining wall under the water. And another tips that I've learned is how to create sort of like a roundabout and a bridge, more like a bridge over the canal, because there are issues if you just try to pop it all over. So for example, if I were to do this right now, as you can see, it just says that it's in water and I'm not able to build. I feel like these are some of the tips that would be useful to, some of you. And I hope that, you guys would enjoy the video and stay till the end to see an improved version of the one that I've created. Alright, so, let's get started. So, tip number 1. Landscaping tools are your buddy. Before you lay out your city, make sure to determine the location that you would like to build the city and lay out the size of your city in mind. Make sure it has easy access to body of water so that you can channel the water into the city, right? Obviously, you can build somewhere which is inland, maybe somewhere far there, or anywhere that is not really close to the body of water, but I guess it kind of makes more sense to build the city which is near sort of like an ocean or river or something, right? So I really like the improvements that the game have made to the landscaping tools in Cities Skylines 2, and they've really become easy to use. So just to give you a quick overview of how the landscaping tool works. So over here we have the Shift Terrain tool, and what it does is basically if you left click, it would elevate the terrain, and if you right click, it would lower down the terrain, or in my case, it created a hole. The next tool would be Level Terrain tool, and this is one of the tools that I use very often, and you will use it kind of a lot in Cities Skylines 2 unless you want to follow, build your city in a more natural way to follow the contour line of the terrain. But sometimes if you have something like a hilly area, it's just kind of hard to build, and depending on what you want to do with it, this tool really comes in handy, right? So the way the Level Terrain tool works would be, or how it works for me, it's I would right click somewhere as a point of indication where I would like the rest of the terrain to be. It's sort of act like the right click would be sort of like a copy, and left click would be a paste. So if I were to right click this part, this would be the point of indication of the level of terrain that I would like. So for example, I would right click this part and I would just left click, and as you can see, it would just level the terrain to where the main point of indication is at. The next tool that we have is Soften Terrain tool, and how this works is basically if again you have sort of like an elevation and it looks kind of wonky at the moment, it's kind of high up and a lot of exposed surfaces, and what you would do is basically you just use the Soften Terrain tool. Maybe let me decrease the brush size. Alright, and I would just left click and it would just basically make it sort of nicer, right? The reason why this happens is because the difference between the elevations is too much, And that's why the terrain kind of like, yeah, just smoothened out like that. So when that happened, what you need to do next is just sort of lower down the area a little bit and then just soften it up to, yeah, make it like a sort of heel. That's basically the gist of what it does, right? So this is the soften terrain tool, and the next one would be the slope tool. This is something that I don't use very often. So basically what this means is that, you know, because we would like to create a slope, when you right click, this would be the end point. And let's say I want, you know, the slope to be from this area all the way up here. So what I would do is I would just right click and I would left click from here, and the slope would match it would automatically slope all the way up here, right? As you can see. Ugh, just so ugly. Anyway, so these are the overview of the landscaping tools, and we will be using it quite often for, you know, to build our city. And let me just remove this slopey hill because I wanted to create a level terrain city, right? Alright, so it's done. So now that, you know, everything is done, we have all the tools. The next thing we would do is we will lay out the size of the city, right? For this case, let's do 1.5 over 1.5 km. So it would be something like this. And we want the canals to run through the outside of the city, so we will need to leave some space, you know, above and basically outside the city. One of the things that I really like as an improvement that the Cities Skylines 2 has is that it has a length indicator, and this is really neat to like really determine the size of the city. So 1.5 roughly is like that, and then we would do here, the angle would be 1.5 over 1.5. Alright, just want to make sure that it's 1.5. Alright, so this is done. I'm gonna skip ahead because this is gonna take a while, so see you guys in a bit. Alright, so what I've done here is that I've laid out the grid of my city, and I have created the canal as well. So there are two canals, with one surrounding the inner city and the outer layer of the city. So I've used pedestrian street as the marking or an indicator to be the outer layer of where the canal is gonna be, and the brush strength size of this canal is basically about 100, right? So brush size, sorry, not strength. So usually this is what I do. Obviously you can have a wider canal if you want to. I feel that this is a good size because, well, this would be about it, right? So few things to do, and this is where tips number 2 is at, which is to plan ahead, right? So there are a few things that you need to plan ahead. So the first thing to plan ahead would obviously be the streets. And what do you want your public transport system to be? So the reason why you have that in mind is because land is pretty limited in this sense, because the moment you put down the canal, it's kind of hard to expand outwards unless you sort of create a bigger road and your city becomes sort of like tighter and smaller. So being the cheapskate that I am, I wanted to make sure that I have the full grid size, right, or the block size of whatever the streets can provide me, right? The next thing to watch out for is the size of the streets, right? So I'm using 8 lanes road, and the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to lay down the trams, and if I lay down the trams, it would be a 6-lane road, and the trams again would be going all around the city, and I wanted it to stay that way, and this is one of the things that I plan for. Now another thing to think about or plan ahead would be if I want to include subways or trains into the city. So the reason why we wanted to do that at the beginning is that if we were to channel the water in, and once the water flows in here, you would have an issue where it says that you cannot build on water. There are ways to go around it, and that's gonna be one of the things that we will talk about later. So the last thing to plan ahead is basically if you would like to have a retaining wall. This can be done, the retaining wall can be done in a much easier way if there is no water channeling in yet. So just to give you a quick overview on how to do a retaining wall is basically any kind of streets. So for example, this is pedestrian, and if you decrease the elevation strength to maybe down 2 levels, and basically the retaining wall would appear until the elevation of 7.5 meter. If you go beyond that, it would just turns into a bridge. That's not exactly necessary, and I'll show you the tips on how to resolve this issue when you have the water channel in. Alright, now it's time to let the water in. I'm gonna do a quick time lapse and I'm gonna skip ahead to show you the end result. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna break this road over here, and well, I've set the depths of the water to be like that, and let's go. I'm gonna increase the strength. It's gonna be slightly messy, but it doesn't really matter because you're gonna fix it at the end of the day. So this is just to let the water in. Yep, I've increased the speed of the simulation, and let's create a deeper channel over here so that there are more waters coming in. Oops, the brush stroke is too much. Right, let's do something like, that's too deep. It doesn't really matter, but you know, just that my OCD is sort of triggering. Okay, we will do something like this so that the water moves in. Alright, time lapse magic starts. Alright, so a short time has passed and most of the water has been channeled in to our canal. Not all of it, because as you can see over here that a lot of the stream of water is still gushing in, and it will eventually equalize itself, and you can see that this, you know, the water is still filling in from here. It's gonna take some time, but anyway, what we can do at the moment is to fix up this retaining wall, and this is basically tip number 3, which is how to create a retaining wall. Right, so we do not have any issue earlier when the land is dry. We can just build a retaining wall quite easily. But in order to, so right now it's basically how do we, you know, do that with, you know, the amount, with the body of water in. As you can see, I'm no longer able to, you know, basically build, because it just have the error that says error message that says in water, right? So this is where our landscaping tool would be our body. So what we can do is basically we're gonna have this basically the road level, and we would raise up the elevation a little bit to be something like this. So this is one of the way we can sort of like cheat our way through. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna create basically some road, or some land mass, so that we can connect our retaining wall. So basically what you need to do is sort of just raise up the terrain a little bit, and once that's done, it might take a few tries, just to let you know, because it's a little bit finicky. So if we do this, so we're gonna need to decrease the elevation to sort of 7.5. Okay, we are still having an issue here. So what's going on is that because it detects, you know, that the game sort of detects that, oh, that's, you know, basically the the wall is uneven, right? So we can, you know, just do that. Other than that, another thing is just to level up the road, but just leave this part empty, right? You will need a small little part, otherwise it's just going to be a road. So for example, if I were to do this and just connect it all the way, and then I remove the let me just remove the terrain, you can see that, you know, there's no retaining wall over here at all. It just become a road. So that's why you always need 2 level. So 1 level is the road level. So the way it's the way the game detects it is basically you will need half of the basically half of the street on the road level, or like street level where you want to build stuff, and basically another level which is to, we're gonna use this, which is to sort of where you want the road to be. So if we were to do this right now, you would see that the retaining wall would appear, and it's as easy as that. So once this is done, we can just go back to, you know, just smoothen out everything, and we're done, right? Obviously this is just to show you what's going on. We would still need the water to be channeled in, so we still need that bridge. So, but basically this is how this is done. So I do not want this. Alright, oh, I might just have to redo this part again. Oops. Okay, so the reason why this is happening right now is because the elevation level is too high. The level of the landmass is too high. So if we were to lower it down there, alright, so you can see this is done. Move, and there you have it, right? The retaining wall is done. We can, if you want things to be a bit more natural, you can just leave it be as it is, or you can create, you know, the retaining wall all the way, you know, joining to the outer part of the where all the water channels in. So this is the same thing that you can do for the streets over here as well. So let me just remove this section, and 2 levels. We're gonna raise the elevation maybe about here, and right, is it half? All right, it's about half. Alright, and we're gonna move the level in. So this is a 6-lane one-way divided road. And hang on a second. There you go. Right? So you can do this for all your basically oh, I just noticed something, it's uneven. Alright. So when you have this problem, that's why it's a little bit finicky and it takes you a little bit of tries. I think this is good enough. Let's see the elevation. I did not notice that earlier, 0.1%. Good enough? Is it good enough? No. Yep. So what's gonna happen? It's basically, if you have that kind of issue, basically this part is a problem, right? Because the game sort of just detect which area has the most elevation. So I think, yep, that fixes it. So again, once that's done, we will just remove whatever section that we do not like, and that's it. Done. So this is how you create a retaining wall when you have the water channeled in. So tip number 4, the depth of the water reflects the color of the water, right? So the deeper it is, the darker it is. So one of the things that you can sort of play around with is all you need to do is just elevate the level of the terrain, and alright, we do not want that. So I think yeah, let's start with something like this. The closer it is to the surface, the lighter it is. It sort of creates a nice effect. You know, it's just like in some Japan cities that I've seen some of their canals are kind of shallow, and you can really just see, you know, the land and the fishes inside it. I can't remember where the place in Japan was that, but it just looks amazing. And depending on what you want to do for your city, you can just do that. And there are basically the different depths of the water, right, has different color, and I find it really neat, and it's really nice to sort of just to make the city looks nicer. So if I were to just lower it down a little bit, you will be able to sort of see the contrast or the difference. And yeah, like 1, 2, 3, right? You can obviously, depending on the depth that you like, or depending on what you want your river or canal to be like, you can just do this. Alright, so let's move on to the final tip number 5. This is sort of like a 2-part tip. The first one would be on how to connect bridges over the canals, and the second one would be how do you build you know, underground lines basically. So for example, if I were to take the subway track right now and I'll lower it down to the usual 20 meters elevation, -20, as you can see, I'm not able to build with the message saying that it's in water, right? So I'll show you in a bit on how to, you know, basically fix this problem. So for now, let's move on to bridges, right? So the bridges are pretty simple. If you have retaining wall on both sides, so let's say here and here, you will not have issue building a bridge over as well. But you know, in you know, whatever special circumstances, you decided like, what if I only have one retaining wall on one side, or I do not have retaining wall at all on either side, right? So for example, as you can see, this is bare, and if I were to do the same thing, I'm not able to create a bridge, right, or a connection. And over here, retaining wall on both sides, I can do that. So the way you can sort of just you know, fix this problem is by using again the terrain tool. Just raise up, let me just lower down the brush strength, and I'm gonna raise the terrain for a little bit. You will just need more land on both sides basically, so just elevate it to be something like this, not on the street level. I think it's gonna take a little bit of try, but I think this would be good enough. Let me just make it bigger, and you know, we do the same thing for this part. So you don't have to connect it all, because the moment if you, let me just show you, if I were to do this, it's just gonna create a retaining wall, and this is not what we wanted, because we wanted a bridge, right? Alright, let's just do this. Any roads would be the same. I'm just using it because it's easier. So as you can see, it's gonna be a retaining wall. So this is not what we wanted. We wanted a bridge, right? So what we will just need to do is to create a gap in between the terrain. Let me just lower it down to, oh, this is not what I wanted. All right, something like this. It doesn't have to be perfect, because it's just, you're gonna remove the you know, the rest of the ground anyway. So as you can see, I'm able to do this now, right? So that's the bridge. I'm gonna remove it, the rest of the terrain, to show you. There we go, right? So it's as simple as that. So depending on the reason why you want to have a retaining wall or not, if you decided not to, you know, can't be bothered with the effort of creating a retaining wall, this is what you can do to, you know, bridge the gap, right? Pun intended. So alright, so let's move on to subways, right? So, or underground roads or anything like that. So the elevation is already 20. Again, I'm not able to create you know, the bridge over. So I'm gonna increase the brush strength to 50. So level up the road over here. I would prefer to create a bigger patch for now. And then there we go. So once this is done, once you can see that there's 2 markers on the subway line, well, and then we will just use the level terrain tool to remove the excess So yeah, so this is the way you can do it. Obviously you can go as deep as you want for 50 if you're paying an unlimited budget. Why not, right? Go ahead and do it. So as you can see, the reason why is because our channel is not deep enough, so it's less than 50 meters, so basically it's just ground underneath. So if I were to do this, I'm not able to do that. I'm not able to do this either. Yep. Right, so 50, so I guess our channel is less than 50 meter basically. Right, I mean, sorry, our canal. Right, so that's it for tip number 5. I'm not quite sure if, does this happens to any of you guys, but it has been raining non-stop for me in this game, and it is currently spring. It has been raining since fall, so not quite sure what's happening, and it's kind of getting annoying. Anyway, this is the end of the video. If you have stayed till the end, thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed. Just to give you an overview of this new canal city. So this is inspired by Hunger Games. You have a roundabout over here, and if you zoom straight in across the canal, it's pretty neat, isn't it? You're looking at, a wide space of area. You have hospital on your left, a police station on the right, the headquarters, and this is the city hall. And on this side you have the central bank. So this is the inner city, and oh, look at all the people walking. Yeah, it's kind of inspired by Hunger Games, which is one of my favorite movies, and I've just watched the the latest movies that came out. It was amazing. No spoilers obviously, but I'll just leave it at that. Alright, so once again, thank you for watching, and see you guys next time.